Hello and welcome to another episode of the Performance Car Podcast. I'm the Associate Editor of Motor Magazine, Scott Newman, and with me today is CEO of BMW Australia, Marc Werner. Hello, Marc.
Hi, how are you?
So, and we're also on, we're in a BMW M140i today. That's why we're in Tasmania. We're on the fantastic Targa roads of Tasmania, which Marc is enjoying at the moment. And we're here because of the life cycle impulse. What's a life cycle impulse, Marc?
So our product life cycle is usually 6 to 7 years, and every 3 to 3.5 years we give our cars a refreshener.
Okay, so it's basically a facelift.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we're in Tassie for the facelift of the BMW 1 and 2 series. We're in the BMW M140i. For about a year it's had the new B58 engine, 250 kilowatts, 500 Newton meters, but it's now 59,990. So they've cut a few grand out of the price. So bang for your buck. It's a pretty impressive machine, as Marc is demonstrating at the moment.
Yeah.
So, but we're gonna
have a lot of fun.
But we're going to have a bit of a chat about all things BMW. But before that, Marc, maybe explain how you came to be in your current position. How did you end up at BMW, at the boss of BMW Australia?
So as a matter of fact, I actually started with BMW some 20 years ago, and actually started in Russia, setting up operations over there, which was quite an experience, as you can imagine. And I had various different roles in headquarters as well. I was working in corporate strategy, mergers and acquisitions, product management, marketing, and so on and so forth. And finally, I got to Australia. So I've been heading the operations for more than 3 years now, and it's been fantastic so far. Okay, fantastic.
So in that time, what's unique about the Australian market in terms of opportunities or challenges? For instance, Australians tend to buy a very high percentage of performance-based products, M products, that sort of thing. Yeah. But in general, what are the challenges and what you've found in the Australian market?
Well, there are definitely more opportunities than the challenges, which is great. As you know, the Australian car market we call it the box market. So it's been hovering around 1.1 million car sales on an annual basis. And what is really worth mentioning or noting is that the demand for premium cars has been growing over the last 5 years. So the premium segment, which is the segment that we are operating in, used to hover around 60,000 units 5 years ago, and has now increased to 120,000 units, which is awesome. And we believe that there is further opportunity to grow the premium segment here in Australia, which is, as I mentioned before, the segment that we are operating in.
Okay, just on that, is there an issue with premium volume in terms of, by its very definition, premium is sort of exclusive, it's aspirational, it's, sought after. So then it's a stretch to say everyone's got one, but you know what I mean? If everyone's got a premium car, is it still premium? How do you operate that in terms of chasing volume as a premium manufacturer?
Well, you always have to balance volume aspirations and what the customer actually wants. But I believe that we have a perfect lineup as far as our product portfolio is concerned. So we offer something from the 1 series all the way up to the 7 series for each and every customer in Australia. So that is what our sales and marketing strategy caters for. And as I said before, there is a growing demand for premium cars, and so customers that are currently driving not a premium car, they want to move up the ladder. Premium cars are more affordable than ever, and so we are seeing quite a good demand for our products.
On that cost thing, it's with the parallel import story recently and the government ruling on that, there was a lot of talk, and there's this conception that we pay a lot for cars in Australia, yet some manufacturers are offering their models at quite reasonable prices, and prices that quite reasonable in the sense that they're the same price roughly that they were 15, 20 years ago. An M3, for instance, is no more expensive now than it was 15 years ago. So how do you respond to that to people who say that we do pay too much, and that certain manufacturers are just taking the mickey, they're just having a lend? So
yeah, I mean, first of all, we are very appreciative of the government now putting a full stop to these talks about parallel imports, which would have been disaster for the industry overall here in Australia, on the one side, but in particular for employment, for jobs in Australia. When it comes to pricing of those cars, if you do the math and if you compare them like for like, and what is really important is to note that the Australian spec level is already extremely high. So you cannot just compare a sticker price of the how you're buying a car here in Australia compared to any other market around the world, and then say, well, overseas and the car is cheaper. So you really have to make your proper analysis and compare apples with apples and not apples with pears in order to understand the implications. And we've run those analysis quite a lot, and it clearly shows that if you obviously have to take out the luxury car tax, that we are on eye level there. Yeah. So the customer is not necessarily disadvantaged.
Excellent. What I'm interested in is you've done a couple of Australian-only sort of initiatives as BMW, which is interesting. The Pure model, for instance, which you've offered M5, now the M3 and M4, which has just come out, the M2 with some success, and we also saw recently the BMW M140i Performance Edition, which was a limited run car for Australia only. What's the thinking behind that strategy, and is that something that's been adopted by other markets, something that other markets has looked at all?
Yeah. It's the Pure concept is a BMW Australia specific approach, and we are very proud of that. We started that with the previous generation M5, so the F10, and it has immediately taken off. It has immediately proven to be successful, and that's why we actually adopted that concept for the M2 Pure, for example. And definitely we are going to roll this out to other M models as well. We just recently introduced it on the M3 and then in the M4. So the question is what we're going to do with the M5, but let's wait and see. Okay,
so watch this space in terms. But it's certainly something you want to roll out across other M products.
Yeah, and absolutely, because we believe to really provide a puristic M car and puristic M Pure, as the name suggests, is definitely the right way forward.
Fantastic. One of the real things I want to talk to you today about is it's a rare opportunity to talk to someone at the head of a special premium sporting car company. So the future of performance. We had a presentation last night with you about BMW's sort of future plans, future vision. And we saw at Frankfurt a lot of talk about autonomy, electricity and that sort of thing. BMW is interesting in that it's got sort of a foot in both camps. You've got I performance and you've got M performance. So you've got sort of traditional sporting values, I guess, and new age hybrid electrified cars. So where do you see the future of performance cars going? Do the two merge? Are they two separate things for different buyers? How do you see the two melding in years to come?
Yeah, so we definitely started with the BMW I brand, and we brought it into Australia almost 3 years ago in order to make a statement as far as innovation is concerned. So BMW I stands for innovation, stands for the incubator sub-brand in order to bring new technologies into the market, be it around electric vehicles, be it autonomous cars, or whatever you can think of. And that's the purpose of the BMW I and the BMW I performance sub-brands. BMW M, as the name suggests, comes from motorsport, and that will continue to be the case. Whether these two brands will actually merge in the future, I would say no, because they both serve a very specific purpose, and as I just mentioned, and definitely if there are possibilities to get one or the other technology out of the M cars into an I car, or from an I car into an M car, we might consider that, but that is certainly too early to talk about that. But there's a lot of movement as far as technology.
But it's not the case that I means electric and M means petrol, for instance. I mean, BMW is going into Formula E next year, I believe, so therefore a BMW electric car could have a motorsport link then?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, what is more important is the BMW M customer expects a car that he can put on the racetrack, and that is the main purpose of the BMW M brand.
Okay, fantastic. So As mentioned at Frankfurt, everybody was talking about autonomy, everyone was talking about electrification. That was the buzzwords of that show. How, as someone who loves driving, you've just told me that you're an enthusiast, you are a car enthusiast, you're a driving enthusiast. How will we as enthusiasts continue to enjoy driving like we are now in 10, 20 years time? Are we still going to be able to do that, do you think? Or will it be like horse riding, where we all go to a certain club and drive around for fun?
No, certainly then there will be enough room and enough space to drive cars like the way we are driving them at the moment here in Tasmania. However, what will certainly change, and obviously you cannot compare cities like for like, but what we are seeing already happening in the metropolitan areas in Europe, for example, is that electric vehicles will definitely be the name of the game going forward, and that normal combustion engine vehicles will have its challenges getting access to cities. So when it comes to the way we are driving cars, autonomous vehicles will certainly have or play in a certain role in order to get congestion down or congestion levels down, as well as electric cars and getting emissions down in particular in urban environments, as I just mentioned. So we will see a substantial change as far as mobility is concerned. And speaking about mobility, we are also very active as far as mobility services are concerned with our Drive Now concept, for example, or Reach Now concept, which we have launched overseas. So all of this together will certainly change the automotive environment as well as customer behavior going forward.
Okay, so what do you see as the timeline? I mean, there's plenty of news stories now about various cities, as you mentioned, potentially banning internal combustion engines in their major city centres. There's talk of some countries, banning any cars that don't have some form of electrification. And also, last night we talked about autonomous cars. Everything from, for instance, most cars now are level 1 autonomous in terms of active cruise control, that sort of thing. Many cars are now got to level 2, which is sort of hands-off, lane assist and stuff like that, all the way up to level 5, which is completely autonomous. You can fall asleep if you want to. So what do you see as the timeline in terms of having that technology, in terms of legislation and technology, to have that future that you've just described?
Yeah, our internal timeline is probably the beginning of the next decade. Mm-hmm. So with our BMW i Next vehicle, which we are going to launch in 2021, we will launch this kind of technology which you just described.
Will that be level 3 or level 4 autonomous?
It's too early to talk about it,
okay,
because at this point in time, then the major challenge that we have, or the major obstacle, is legislation.
Yeah.
Right? And so once we've sorted out all the legislative aspects, then we can actually launch this kind of technology. But it will certainly be not this decade, but it will probably be next decade.
Excellent. Back onto more traditional performance car values. BMW's traditional sort of motto was ultimate driving machine, and more recently it changed to, I believe, sort of efficient dynamics. Which model do you feel in the BMW range best expresses BMW's current ethos? That, I guess, that balance between offering performance and driver involvement with, I suppose, efficient dynamics, that future-looking technology, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's probably the car that we are sitting in right now.
Okay.
So the M140i is definitely one of those cars that are extremely aspirational on the one side, but on the other side also offer a very, very good value for money, in my opinion. It's a very puristic BMW, the ultimate driving machine, rear-wheel drive, a manual transmission if you want to have it, six-cylinder inline straight engine. It's just awesome. Comes with all the bells and whistles as you would expect it. BMW connected drive, the newer ID.6 as well. So that's definitely what I would
go
for.
That's fortuitous then that we're in this car. And I guess to wrap up, I wanted to get some thoughts on maybe some favourite BMW memories of you. Like you say, you've been with the company 20 years. Has there been sort of a car, a moment, a person you've interacted with or met over the years, that a few memories that really stand out?
Yeah, I think what really stands out, and that's is still one of those moments which I'll never forget, is I met my wife at BMW.
All right.
So yeah. So that's also almost 15 years ago, which was definitely one of the most fascinating moments working in the company. But as far as product is concerned, definitely driving the BMW M cars on the Autobahn.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently drove the all-new BMW M4 CS,
Okay.
and then the Club Sport, which we'll bring into Australia in October. So basically next month, which is a cracker of a car. And as far as experience is concerned, I mean, here in Australia, you got a couple of the best racetracks in the world. So I was able to drive or to take a car on the Bathurst racetrack, which is an amazing racetrack. You know, going through the S's and doing the dipper and the like. You know, and I'll never forget that. And we also launched the M2 last year in April 2016 as part of Target Tasmania, which was also an unbelievable and extraordinary experience. So speaking about great experience or great moments with BMW, those would probably be the ones.
Do you have a particular model? If they could give you a retirement present, in the future, would there be one particular model out of BMW's past or present that you'd like to hide away in the garage?
Oh, that's a very tough question, but it would certainly be an M car.
An M car, no worries. Well, thank you very much, Marc, for your time.
Thank you.
We'll let you get back to the enjoyable driving on some of these amazing Targa roads. So thank you very much for watching and listening. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time on the Performance Car Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks.